Welcome back to Daytime. Let's talk a little bit about student debt. Something that doesn't just stick around when you're 18 and 19. Sometimes it can last a long time. To discuss this, we have Mr. André Bolduc, Senior VP, Licensed Insolvency Trustee with BDO Canada Limited. Welcome to Daytime. I think sometimes when we think, okay, your student debt, that's, when you're 18 and you start, and then maybe, by the time you're 21, it's done. But it isn't always like that, is it?
No, it's not. What we've found is there's people paying their student debt way into their 30s.
Wow.
Recently, we conducted a poll, and what we found is that 3/4 of people polled under 40 have some regret about the level of student debt they have taken on.
Wow. And the reason we take the debt is because we're trying to pay for our studies. So do they regret paying for their studies, or do they just regret that the debt is too big?
There's four main areas where they have regret. One of them is they regret having taken on too much debt. They wish they would have been more frugal while they were in school. They wish they would have budgeted better. As well, they wish that they would have worked more hours, perhaps part-time, to help pay for school and not carry as much debt. And they also mentioned that they wish they would have looked at career prospects earlier, and maybe they would have picked a different program.
Well, yes, because sometimes what you choose to study in, it may take a while to get the job that you're looking for.
Yes.
Especially if you don't want to move. Sometimes it works if you want to move, but if you want to stay in your town, that can be more difficult as well.
Yeah, and different jobs are in more demand, and the salary is going to be different. So you have to factor that in when you take a bunch of debt, how much your payments are going to be and how much you're going to get paid to make sure you can service that debt.
Wow. So now 3/4 of those polled say they have regrets. What are the implications of that?
Well, when you carry student loans, we found that the vast majority, about 90% of graduates have to scale back their spending in order to afford that student loan. So that means less discretionary spending, so they have to cut back on clothing, of course, vacation, dining out, and about 1/4 of them move back home in order to save money.
Wow.
And because people are scaling back, they put off life milestones, so it takes longer to get that first home. They'll postpone marriage and kids.
Do you think that the moving back home thing is more frequent lately than it was eons ago? Because I don't remember way back in my day. I'm not going to ask you how old you are. But once we left, we kind of left. And then we had our job and, life went on. And it seems that we're hearing a lot more about that. And I don't know if it's a new trend or if it's always been around.
Well, it was my experience. When I left. But what we found in our poll is that about 1/4 of students with student debt go back home for a period of time.
Wow. To try to alleviate the debt, maybe?
Yeah. Well, to save money. You don't have to pay as much for rent and a bunch of other expenses. So the key there is if you do move back home, make sure that you save that money and not spend it on other things.
Okay, so let's talk about advice then. So now we're at a point where our debt is not paid, and we might feel a little bit crushed by it. Can be a little bit scary. What's some advice that you can give people out there?
Well, it's very important for people to budget. Budget is what's going to permit you to achieve your goals, and one of your goals should always be to pay back your loans. You have to, when the budget permits you to find a way to live within your means. And what I always say is you have to find a way to live below your means, because you just don't want to make minimum payments. You want to accelerate those debt payments, especially if you're carrying other types of debts like credit cards at high interest rates. You want to minimize the amount of interest that you pay.
Yeah, I remember for our daughter who was about to pay for university, she was so overwhelmed that I'm never going to do this, it's just too much money. And that spreadsheet, put in here what you need to spend, what's discretionary, just look at it for a month or two, and then you kind of get an idea, that's what budgeting is. Because it's such a big word for a young person sometimes, budget. They think, okay, I'm going to put $50 a month in my bank account, but you really need to see where the money is going and where it needs to go, right? Just make it really easy for them to understand.
Absolutely. And we do have some worksheets on our website, for example, that people can use to budget, to plan paychecks and to set goals and to think long term. And then to start thinking about saving for an emergency fund or saving for retirement. It's not just about getting rid of the debt, it's to achieve other goals as well.
All right, so budgeting might be one nugget of advice. Do we have an extra that might be interesting?
Well, while you're in school, we did get a lot of advice from people that graduated. They say that you have to be able to make financial sacrifices while you're in school. Smart. Work part-time before school or during school. Those were the big ones. And
maybe curb back on some of the social stuff.
Yeah, anything that's discretionary.
Yeah.
It's all about sacrifices, and whatever you save now is money you'll have later on because you're paying less interest.
Interesting. Now, let's say someone's, kind of followed this advice and now they just feel overwhelmed. There's always a, worst case scenario. There's still some help available, right?
Yes, there is. A lot of people will seek help from friends or family. They'll get that second job. They'll do what they need to. But in addition to that, there are government programs. Okay. So through the federal government and provincial, students are eligible for what's called the RAP, Repayment Assistance Plan.
Okay.
So if you earn less than $25,000 a year, you don't have to make any payments. The government's going to cover your interest. If you earn more than that, you may have to pay a little bit, but it all goes towards the principal. So people are eligible for that for up to 5 years. After that, there's another government program where you can get debt reduction. So it's very important to look at what those programs are and to see if you qualify, in whole or in part. And the key thing is you have to reapply for that every 6 months.
Okay.
I think a lot of people graduating don't look into it, or they don't stay on top of it, and they don't take advantage of that.
And looking for someone like you is really handy as well. So debtsolutions-ottawa.ca, and having a pro to help us budget would be another great thing to do, correct?
Correct.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all of the advice. All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about becoming the person we admire. Stay with us. You're watching Daytime on Rogers TV.